For the sermon today, Pastor Jeremy and I are tag teaming it a little bit in a really neat way. And we are tag teaming it with our niece, Ainsley First. Ainsley recently graduated high school, and she is coming out here in the fall. She is attending PLU, so we are pretty excited about that. Just a little bit excited. And Ainsley has been doing some really interesting and neat work within her church and in her world out in Minnesota. And so we are going to be having a conversation with her today as the gospel is spoken through conversation.
Okay, as we do this, I know a lot of you, like myself, have your Zoom set to gallery view so you can see everyone at once. It may be helpful during the sermon if you go to the upper right-hand corner and you click to speaker view, then you can, you don't have to pick out from the different squares, Ainsley or myself. Okay, Ainsley, hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well. First things first, what's the maximum number of people you've come out to at once?
Oh boy, 20.
Well, great. We set a record for you this morning. How and when did you discover this aspect of your identity? Because I mean, you're only 18.
Well, first things first, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Ainsley and I am gay. And part of my whole journey has been feeling comfortable saying those words. And so when somebody asked me the question that Pastor Jeremy, you just asked me, how and when did I discover this part of my identity? There's not a specific moment because it's different for everyone. And it wasn't like there was a specific day where I decided that I was going to be gay. It was a part of me ever since I was born. It wasn't a decision that I made. And so there's not I can't tell you a story about, oh, well, this day I discovered that I was gay. It was more of just my own personal journey in growing up and going to high school and realizing that I wasn't straight, so I had to be something else, and realizing that that was gay. So I think if that kind of makes sense, that's how I discovered it. And I came out in my sophomore year of high school, which was 2 years ago. So.
Well, and it's an odd question too, right? Like we don't ask straight people, hey, when did you discover you were straight?
Exactly.
And it's the same thing with coming out too. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the spiritual discipline of coming out and how that related to your faith.
Yeah. So when I came out, it was a split-second decision that I was just like, all right, this can't happen anymore, and I need to be able to talk about what I'm feeling in order to fully process it myself.
Why did you need to say anything? You know, some people would say, well, why is that important?
Because for me, especially to the people close to me, it was important that I could be open about who I was and to not feel like I was hiding part of my identity. So when I came out, it happened in several different stages. And it's not like I walked around announcing to everybody, hey, I'm gay, because that's not I don't feel that I need to do that. Because just as a straight person wouldn't say to everyone, hey, I'm straight. I don't need to walk around saying, hey, I'm gay. But when I came out, I don't think there was a single person that didn't support me, which I'm extremely fortunate to have that. And I think that in terms of my kind of spiritual experience with that, it's exactly that sentence is I didn't have a single person say to me, oh, well, you're not worthy of my love anymore. And that to me was God's work in action.
So if all those people had that, and that was your experience, then why was it so important that your church have a welcoming statement? Because you were instrumental in putting that together.
Yeah. Because it's not just about me. Because even though I knew that the people close to me were supportive, I know too many of my friends and people in the LGBTQ community who won't step foot inside of a church because they've had bad experiences or they think of the church negatively. And that's never how I want somebody to feel walking into my church, because I've experienced the complete opposite. And so for me, it was important to say to the community around us that we are a welcoming and loving church, because we did, so as part of our whole journey in creating this welcome statement, we did a kind of research study in the area around us, in which a majority of people who said that they didn't attend church said they didn't attend church because they feared being judged. And that was an extremely impactful moment for me and for people in our community, because we experience church in such a positive light, and those that aren't inside of our church experience it in a negative one.
So how did you approach that conversation in your church, knowing like maybe there's some people like they're never going to change their mind?
Yeah. I think it's important to explain this, to say that I wasn't out to a lot of people when I started talking about this with my church. It was something that people close to me knew, but it wasn't something that I was out, open and loud about. And it wasn't something that I hid either. It just wasn't something that I talked about. And so when I started talking about this, it was from a point of, we need to make other people feel welcome. It wasn't about me. So when we started this conversation, specifically, it was on ministry planning night, because at our church we have one night each trimester where we invite everyone from the church to come and talk about their different ideas from the church. And my thought throughout the entire night was, we really need a welcome statement. And so I put that up on the board, and that's kind of what started all of this. And our Pastor Walt, approached me afterwards and wanted to know if I could lead that, and I said yes, and it kind of just went on from there.
So what would you say to someone who says, well, you know, we already have welcoming churches. Like, why do we need another? Why can't, if someone's gay and they want to find a church, like there's plenty of churches out there flying the rainbow flag, right? Like, why does our church need a welcoming statement?
I would say that my generation and the generations that will come after me are very hesitant to walk into any church, even if they are RIC or they have a welcome statement, because there is still a negative perception of how churches treat people of color, how churches treat the LGBTQ community, and so on. So if the church doesn't as a whole move forward in this process and become RIC and have welcoming statements, then I don't know that it will last much longer, because the generations after me are they're looking for a progressive church that's going to accept and welcome everyone. They can't just be one church. It has to be all churches.
What would you say to someone who has concerns about how the church might change over like having a welcome statement or becoming like reconciling in Christ? Like, I mean, a lot of these people, like they grew up in these churches. This is the only church they've ever known, and they love it, and it's their family. And, it can be difficult seeing our family change.
Yeah, I would say that change looks different for everyone. And if a church becomes RIC or creates a welcome statement, that doesn't necessarily mean one thing for every church. That means that the church is committed to being an ally to the LGBTQ community, to people of color, to people from all different backgrounds. It may mean that your church changes. It may mean that there are people that start coming to your church that you didn't know before. And I think that I would encourage people asking those questions to view it in a positive light, and to look at people coming into the church that weren't there before, that are now entering because you are RIC or because you have a welcome statement, as people with new perspectives, and as people that could help you grow and learn.
What are your hopes for the church for the future?
I think that I have a lot of hopes for the church in the future, and I think that I want the church to continue to be allies, and I want the church to, past becoming RIC and having welcoming statements and all that that entails, I want the church to look for opportunities to welcome those that weren't welcome. So that means going to Pride and expressing your clear support, or reaching out to our Black brothers and sisters that are hurting right now and expressing your support. And it means looking for ways to do that and not waiting for the opportunity to come to you.
If you think of some of your favorite or most respected allies, what makes for a good ally?
People that listen. Because, you know, I am always looking for people who, when they say they want to be allies to me and the LGBTQ community as a whole, the number one thing that I would tell them is that means that you listen. And that means that if somebody chooses to come out to you, you believe them and you mirror how they're feeling and you show them nothing but absolute support. Because that's what makes a good ally. That's what makes me feel loved and comfortable with people.
So for a lot of churches, it seems like, well, you know, those who've already gone through the process of like writing a welcoming statement or becoming reconciling in Christ, or even, you know, flying that rainbow flag, there's a notion that they've arrived, right? Like, look at us. I mean, we're here, right? We're better than those other Christians who aren't. So after that whole process, what happens, and how can churches remain humble in that identity?
I would say that first, yes, good for you. Good for you for having a welcoming statement, for being RIC, for having these conversations. I would also say that there is so much to learn, and you can't learn it all in 1 week or 1 month or even 1 year. So I would say that, you know, just as I said earlier, it's important to look for opportunities to learn and to listen when those opportunities do arise. You've never arrived, because there are a lot of things that you can learn. You're never going to know everything. So there's always, always, always more opportunities to learn and grow.
It really calls into mind the tension between two of today's scriptures. Jesus offers us the statement of welcome. But then in Romans, we see that Paul writes about being slaves to sin, right? And earlier in Romans, Paul gives, you know, these statements that have been interpreted as condemning homosexuality. How do you live in the tension between those?
I say that the Bible guides us. But just as there are things in the Bible that may say, and not even clearly, that homosexuality is a sin, there are also a lot of other things in the Bible that are stated as a sin that we do regularly, like getting tattoos. Is not something that it's something the Bible condemns, yet many of us have tattoos. And I like to view the LGBT community in that same light. Is the Bible guides us, but it is in no way a rule book, if that makes sense.
Oh, wow, you just encapsulated what I try to communicate in our Bible study every single week. You know, I know some of us growing up were taught, you know, BIBLE, it stood for basic instructions before leaving Earth, right? But it's not. It tells us about ourselves and it tells us about God. That's really good. You're coming to PLU this fall.
I am.
where are you going to worship regularly?
Wow, that was I haven't figured that out yet.
Yes, I'm interested
I
to
have-
know.
I have two amazing people very close to me that I could go to their churches, and there's also campus ministry on PLU. So maybe I'll split my time.
Well, I know folks in both churches are now looking forward to meeting you, so you better be prepared to be a little overwhelmed with greetings when you show up.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Ainsley Jo. We love you, and we're looking forward to having you out here.
Thank you.